I'm getting closer and closer to being like Christy the Adrolo girl in terms of my dreams of doing videos. So today I'm going to take you through two operant conditioning questions. So first questions from the 2013 VCAR exam. Mac's dog Raffy barks excessively every time someone comes into the house. Give 3 reasons why this scenario is an example of operant conditioning rather than classical conditioning. So, what's the first thing we're going to do when we get a question like this? We are going to use our marking allocation for short answer questions to determine all of these things. So, whoops, I didn't even do the marks. Okay, so the marks there, it's out of 3 marks. And the scenario there being about Mac's dog Raffy. And in terms of the command terms, you have to give 3 reasons why this is an example of. So you're already using the scenario because you have to demonstrate why it's an example. And the topic there of operant conditioning rather than classical conditioning. I really like this question because the way that it's worded, it doesn't ask you to determine which one it is. It already tells you that it's operant conditioning as opposed to classical conditioning. So what this question's actually asking you to do is list the features of operant conditioning that differ from classical conditioning and then apply it to this scenario of Mac's dog Raffy. It's helpful if you use the workbook activity that you would have done where you compare operant and classical conditioning, which would have given you some leg up examples on how to do that. So let's have a look now at what that would look like. So some things that you can compare in this example is the nature of the response. So for classical conditioning, we know that it is reflexive. We know that operant conditioning, the nature of the response here is voluntary. Acquisition. So how is the behavior actually learnt? In classical conditioning, it's through repeated pairing of the neutral stimulus and the unconditioned stimulus. And in operant conditioning, it's providing a consequence following a particular behavior. That is how it is learnt. The role of the learner in classical conditioning is passive, whereas in operant conditioning, it is active. So let's have a read back through the question here. In terms of Mac's dog Raffy, so barking itself is a voluntary response. So Raffy barking is voluntary. By yelling at Raffy, Mac is providing a consequence for his behavior. So another reason why it would be operant conditioning, because he's providing a consequence. And both Mac and Raffy are active participants in the situation. So they're both doing something active, which is why it is operant conditioning.